So check it out. Last month, one of my webinars made over $106,000 in just 90 minutes. But somehow, people still seem to think that webinars are more hassle than they're actually worth. But here's the thing. There's a difference between a webinar amateur and a webinar pro. And here's where the amateurs get it wrong. They go live, one shot, hope enough people show up, hope the tech holds out, hope they don't fumble their way through the pitch at the end. And if it flops, they just do the whole thing again live next week. A pro understands that a webinar isn't something you run. It's a system that you build one time that sells for you 24/7 on repeat. And that's the entire difference between the people quietly making real money from webinars right now and the people still dreading that live Tuesday night webinar that they've got coming up. Now, the good news is there's only 4 things that you need to make this system work, and I'm going to give them to you in a very specific order by design, because the last one decides whether this system makes you a fortune or completely flops. So let's get started with the first one. Now, real quick, before I tell you what it is, let me first share with you how I came to understand this entire webinar system and turned it into a $1 million machine. This concept is something I've been teaching my clients for a while, and it's called the cold to sold timeline. The idea is that anyone that comes into contact with you and your business, they are going to be going on a journey of discovery about what it is that you've got and who it is that you serve and whether they want to buy something from you. If they see an ad or they see a piece of content from you, they start at a 0. If they've never heard of you before, then there's 0 buying intent. And of course, we're trying to move people towards a 10 where they are sold on you, your business, working with you, or buying your stuff. Now, what's happening in the middle is your marketing and your sales. You are moving someone closer up the cold to sold timeline. The more they get to know you, the more trust is built and things like this. I realized something in the beginning of my journey. When I first started launching my businesses, I was trying to get customers, trying to get clients, overwhelmed by the algorithms and social media. Nothing was working. It always felt like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I left my day job to start a business because I'm trying to give myself more freedom and have more fulfillment. And I landed myself in a place where I'm working harder than I ever have before for $0. Eventually, I found a way to land some customers, land some clients. However, it also landed me in a trap, and that's this trap down here. And it's also the place where most people get stuck as well, potentially you as well. We find ourselves in a spot where we've got a strategy to start landing some customers and clients, but it is so dependent on us actually doing the practical work, meaning we are manually giving our time to generate that client. If we stop working, the business stops. So what ends up happening? You go to networking events, or you put out content, or you DM someone, and it all starts with an introductory conversation. You've probably found yourself in this situation where you meet someone for the first time, or you've been introduced to someone, and within 5 minutes, the offer is on the table. Hey, let's jump on a call and see if there's any synergy, see if there's something we could do together. And what you're doing is you're getting on the phone with people that are only a 1 or a 2 on the cold to sold timeline, but you are now manually using your time to determine whether they are a good potential client or not. In some cases, they're trying to sell you. You don't even know what the conversation is even for, so you're using all of your valuable time to try and figure that out. The reason this is a bad idea is you're trying to get someone now on the phone from a 2 to a 10. That's why it always feels like an uphill battle, because you've got so much of the work, the majority of the work to do, and it's all happening on the phone. That's why you feel awkward, uncomfortable, you get hit with no after no after no after no. I figured there must be a better way. That was my introduction to webinars. What if we could create one presentation, one signature presentation that I could deliver to multiple people at the same time? What if I could deliver to 100 people or 1,000 people in one go, deliver my message, provide value, and then have a calendar full of potential prospects and clients? So this is what I started to do. I was doing these live webinars that was doing all the telling and selling for me, building relationship with these potential prospects. The people that weren't interested, they left the webinar. I never had to speak to them, and out the other end were hot, ready to buy customers and clients that were up here at an 8. And for a season, it was doing really well for me. Making some good money, started to build a business bigger than I had done before, but it came with also a big constraint. Now, this is the difference between the amateur and the pro. When I was doing live webinars, I was still an amateur. I had a great presentation, I was starting to build the business, but I was still stuck in this, if I stop, the business stops. If I don't do that webinar on Thursday night, no sales are coming in for the business this month. And it was trying to solve this constraint that led me to discovering the first of the 4 points that I want to share with you today. And that is, we take our signature presentation and we automate the entire thing. We invite people not to a live webinar, we invite them to a rerun, an automated version of that presentation. And what I found is staggering. The first was, even though I'm not there live, I was still able to get people into this beautiful sweet spot, which is around about a 6 on the cold to sold timeline. It's doing all of the work for me in getting someone to understand who I am, my brand, my message, to receive some value from me and get them closer up the timeline, ready to be sold on what it is that I have. But of course, it's automated, which means the second thing could happen. I could get some serious volume coming into this process, far more than I could do live. Because if you're doing live webinars, there's a huge risk element. Are you going to spend a ton of money on paid ads leading to one event one time? Or what if Zoom crashes or your Wi-Fi goes out or something happens? You've wasted a lot of money in the business and it's just too high risk. If you're automating the presentation, you can send hordes of people on a daily basis and you can measure on a daily basis, which means you can make micro improvements and tweaks to the entire webinar model and actually have it out converting live webinars eventually. Furthermore, and this blew me away, live webinars were getting me around about a 20% show-up rate. Meaning for every 100 people that I work so hard on social media, creating content and running ads, only 20 of them actually show up. Whereas what I found with automated webinars, we were getting up to a 70% attendance rate. 100 people register for the event, 70 of them actually show up, and I'm getting all of them to a 6. The ROI out the other end was infinitely better than my lives, and it's working for me 24/7 on repeat, whether I'm at my laptop or not. Now, there's something specific that I did that enabled me to get 70% attendance rates. It's a massive tip, and I'm going to share it with you right now. Let's come over to my screen. There are a bunch of different webinar platforms you can use. We launched one called UpWebinar. Right now it's completely free. We're in beta. You can click the link and you can grab a beta account. It will allow you to build your entire webinar funnel from one platform, and it's absolutely incredible. You've got all your pages in one place in sequence, your registration page, the confirmation page, the waiting room, then they come into the webinar, and you can even do some post-webinar follow-up as well. But what schedule do we choose? This is how I got the 70% show rates. We can either choose a recurring schedule, which means the presentation runs at the same day and time every week. You could have a specific date, so you could set a date and time in the future, and instead of delivering it live, you could have a pre-recorded version. Or we built in this functionality called just in time. You can have your webinars running every few minutes of every single day, so that when someone lands on your registration page, the webinar is starting in just the next few minutes. So it emulates that they've just arrived in time. You can have your webinar running every 1 minute, every 15, every 30, every 45, or every 60 minutes. So let's say we chose every 15 minutes, for example. This is the one that I like. What then happens is you're driving traffic from your social media, from your ads, people land on the page, and whatever day, whatever time they land on that page, there is a session starting in the next few minutes. So they'll click the button, they'll put in their details, they'll register for the webinar, they'll land on the confirmation page confirming that they're registered with a link through to the waiting page, where now they're waiting just a few minutes for the webinar to happen, and then they're sent into the training room. And now you've got a captive audience listening to you, paying attention to your message. You could be sat on a beach with a pina colada in your hand while you've got potentially hundreds of people about to be sold on your business. Now, remember those webinar funnel pages that I told you about? That leads me on to the second of the 4 critical things that I need to share with you. And that is the funnel that we're going to use has to be as simple as possible. It blows my mind that new people entering this industry are bombarded by the message that more is better, that you need to have a complicated, huge, tech-heavy funnel if you want it to convert. In my experience, having generated tens of millions with my webinars, it's the complete opposite. Simple is better. In fact, simple scales. You can't scale a messy funnel. So what you're seeing on the board right now is what your funnel should look like, and that is it. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to share with you what the mystery page is, and then I'm going to share with you the big mistake that some people make in our space that is just leaving them struggling to even launch the darn thing. So here's the process, and it's very simple. You drive traffic to your webinar registration page and invite people to join you. Once they register, they land on a confirmation page confirming their registration. They're going to get an email confirming that fact as well. They're then able to click through to a waiting page, or they can get back to it from the email, and they'll sit on this page while it counts down to when the webinar is happening. As soon as the webinar is kicking off, that waiting page redirects to the webinar, your presentation is happening, and you have the chance to make an offer at the end and make some sales. Now, there's two simple additions that we add that maximize the opportunity from this funnel. The first is a replay. Once the webinar has happened, every single person that registered for your webinar, they have a chance to catch the replay and scrub up on what they missed and have a chance to take the offer that you made again. The second and final extra page is this one here, and it's incredible. We have it baked in to Up Webinar. It's an amazing feature and no other platform has it. We call it the late room page. And the idea is simple. What happens if someone registers for your webinar, confirms their attendance, but then they disappear for a little while? They get distracted and they come back and they click on the link and they arrive late to the webinar. Well, there's going to be a period of time where a certain level of late is just too late, and they're going to have missed vital context to your presentation, and now the offer is not going to make any sense. So we have built into our Up Webinar system the ability to set a certain timestamp in your webinar where you can redirect late arrivers to a separate page. So let's say you make that 20 minutes. Well, now if someone arrives 19 minutes late, they're still going to get onto the webinar. But if they arrive 20 minutes late or more, they're going to be taken to a late page that you can fully customize to your heart's content. You can have full creative control. You could say, thanks so much for checking out the webinar. I'm afraid it's already in progress and we're about to finish. Here's a link to re-register for the next session. Or here's a video that gives you the recap. Or you could do whatever it is that you want. So you can create a custom message for the late arrivers, a powerful, powerful feature. And now this is the mistake that a lot of people make. And I want to protect you from this with everything that I've got, because you take something simple and beautiful and you add all this extra stuff that is completely unnecessary. When people think about building a webinar funnel, or any funnel for that matter, they try to add all these bells and whistles before they even launch. So the additions here in red are a bad idea. You shouldn't do them. That is, if someone registers for the webinar, but then they don't even progress through the funnel, then we have a custom email sequence designed just for them to try to convince them to come back. Or we have, if someone arrives for the first few minutes of the webinar, but then they leave in the first few minutes, then we send them a custom automation, almost begging them to come back to the presentation that they missed. And then that leads to an email sequence that again tries to pull them through. If someone came all the way to the waiting room, but didn't quite click that button and come into the webinar, then they get a custom email sequence. Maybe you even make a custom offer for them. What if they did arrive, spent a bit longer on the webinar, but then dropped off right before the offer? Then we take them to a custom automation sequence, to a custom video that still tries to recap the offer that they missed in case they were interested. And what if they got to the end of the webinar and actually saw the offer, but then didn't take the offer? Well, then we have, of course, we have a custom automated sequence to try to convince them to take the offer that they saw, but didn't want. And there's a bunch more stuff that we can do in this. And the problem is you are spending a disproportionate amount of time building parts of the funnel that are going to be seen by very few people. So you're having to write all of these emails. You're having to structure this whole strategy and make sure all of this functions and that no links break or automations fail. Whereas if you keep the funnel simple, you can get a massive uplift in results with very minimal effort. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we didn't have any of the stuff in red. We just had the simple through line of the journey that a prospect goes on. That means there's less stuff demanding our attention. So we can just focus on one of these pages. Let's say we focus on the registration page. We tweak our headline, we tweak the design, we tweak the messaging, we tweak the copy. And what if we get an uplift in the opt-in rate? What if we take the opt-in rate from 10% to 20%? Seems like a decent improvement, but not a massive deal. Well, it actually is, because you just doubled the amount of people that land on this page and move through, which means if everything else holds true, you just doubled your business. If this webinar funnel was generating you $10,000 a month, it's now generating you $20,000 a month because you doubled the amount of people coming through. If this funnel was doing you $100,000 a month, it's now doing you $200,000 a month because you improved and tweaked one page. You will never get that kind of uplift by adding all of these things in red. So point 1 was automating the presentation. Point 2, keep the funnel simple. Point 3, you've got to have what I call an automersive webinar, not just an automated one. If we look at the industry at large right now, we take a live webinar that's working, engaging, exciting, and then we try to automate it and it's crickets. People aren't engaging, they're not taking action, and we wonder why your automated webinar is not working as well as your live. But it's supposed to emulate the same feeling, so why is that happening? It's because everyone is building their automated webinars with outdated tech that's not built for the current age that we're in, and they're everything but engaging. So we need to make our webinars automersive. It's automated, but it's immersive for the viewer so that they stay engaged, and that has a direct correlation to the conversions that you see out the other end. I'll give you a few examples. And we've got all of these things built as features in the Up Webinar system, which again, you can get completely free, no catch, no strings attached, link in the description box. The first thing is when someone joins your automated webinar presentation, there is a pre-webinar window where they select their microphone settings, their camera settings, so it really feels like they're about to join an event. They can even turn their webcam on just as they would do on a Zoom webinar, which really makes it feel immersive. Furthermore, when they get into the webinar training room, they can even see the camera icons for other attendees so that they realize they're not watching this thing by themselves and there is a community feel. So even though you've saved your voice by automating the presentation, there are a bunch of other people on the line with them, which makes them feel a part of something. You also want to have the ability to have attendees participate with the presentation. You don't just want them to be commenting in the chat, but actually playing a part in the experience. So for example, asking for polls, asking them actual questions in the chat that they respond to, selecting multiple choice answers. All of this plays a big part in the engagement. And also you might want to initiate some AI agents to be in the chat. Inside of Up Webinar, you can create multiple AI agents. You can give them different names, different personas. You can train them up on your products, your knowledge, the webinar content itself. And when people start asking questions in the chat, your team of AI agents with real personalities are going to be able to respond to those people, making sure that everyone that asks a question gets answered in real time while they're watching the presentation. These strategies and so much more that's available to you will help make your webinars feel more like an event than just a video playing on a web page. Now, the fourth point, and this will make or break your webinar, is deciding on the price point of the offer that you're selling on the back end of this webinar. Now, you can do these presentations and you can automate these presentations to sell something directly at the end of the webinar, meaning you literally give your webinar attendees a link to enter their credit card information and make a purchase. Or you can do a webinar where you give them a link to book a consultation call with you and you sell them something high ticket on the phone. I want to break down what is a good price for a webinar and what is a bad price, meaning you have no business doing a webinar. Let's talk about high ticket. If you're going to be going to a phone call off the back of the webinar, then you want to be at least $2,000. If your offer is 2,000 or more, 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20, it doesn't matter, then a webinar to book in a call is a great model and the math checks out. If you are trying to sell something directly, then it needs to be at least $500 and you're going from 500 to that 2K price. So if you're booking appointments to sell over 2,000, great. If you're selling something directly between those two price points, fantastic. Here's where the bad news comes in. If you're intending on booking sales calls and you're selling something for less than $2,000, it becomes very hard to make that work. You are going to be on the phone all the day long trying to make sales for $500 or $1,000, and it's just not worth your time. If you're booking calls, it's got to be 2,000 or more. If you're selling something directly and it is lower than $500, then you don't need a webinar. If you're selling a $100 course or a $7 book, you don't need a webinar, you need a different type of funnel. But if you're selling something for 500 or more, this model will work incredibly well for you and you can scale it almost infinitely. I hope you found today's video helpful. If you want to go deeper on this stuff and you're enjoying this education, you've got to check out my full masterclass where I break down my entire marketing strategy that has enabled me to make tens of millions online, selling courses, coaching, events, masterminds, you name it, we've done it, and it's all packed into this masterclass, and I'll see you in the next video.